Good morning. There are participants, public sector stakeholders present, representatives of the private sector. Good morning, civil society organizations, the media, ladies and gentlemen. A very good morning on a Monday morning, and I have the honor to welcome you to this Nigerian Economic Summit Group 28th pre-summit event on repositioning public governance in Nigeria for competitiveness development. Our lineup of programs this morning is in this order. We're going to begin with the National Anthem. We will chant the first stanza, and then we will sing the first stanza, and then we will chant the second stanza as a prayer. Thereafter, we'll invite an opening remark from the former chairman of Nigerian Economic Summit Group, Buka Kyari. All right, then we will set the stage by looking at investment promotion. We'll take just a model. Time will not permit us to navigate through many models that we wanted to look at. So we'll just take what we believe has worked, and then that will set the stage. Then we'll have a context of the panelist session. And thereafter, we will invite our distinguished panelists made up of Mr. Muda Yusuf, former DG of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and presently the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise. Then we'll have Dr. Joe Abba, Country Director, Development Alternatives Incorporated. Then we'll have Dr. Adeyemi Dipolu here, represented by Luisa Chinedu. All right, who is Dipolu is the special advisor to the President on Economic Matters, Office of the Vice President. And then we have Ms. Sadiku Yawande, who is an investment professional. And we have Mrs. Saratu Umar. I hope she's connected now. The Executive Secretary and CEO of the Nigerian Investment Promotion Agency. This is the lineup of our panelists this morning. All right, thereafter, we'll have a wrap-up. My name is Olunye Peter. I am leading a team of investment professionals in investment thematic group, all right, made up of myself, Olunye Peter, Stanley Ugu, Roland Oro, who's going to make a presentation this morning, Salami Abayami, and I believe they are also here present. Thereafter, a wrap-up will be given by Professor Aremu, who is the facilitator, Trade, Investment, and Competitiveness Policy Commission of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. These are program lineup this morning. So once again, I welcome you all, and let us have the National Anthem for an opening. Like I said, we'll sing the first stanza, and then we will proceed to pray the second stanza. On the count of three, I don't know if you can open. I think I should lead it so that we don't have a riotous session. And then let's also say amen at the end of the prayer. So I'll start. Arise, O compatriots, Nigeria's
serve
our fatherland.
We love
and
and
the heroes past shall never be in vain. To serve with heart and nation bound in freedom, peace and unity. So we take the national prayer. O God of creation, direct our noble cause, guide our leaders right, help our youth the truth to know.
How do I put my picture here?
In love and honesty to grow, living just and true, great lofty heights attain, to build a nation and justice shall reign. Amen. So with that, God takes the first place. The rest of the program we are sure we have one house. I'm saying that with that, God has taken the first place. All right. And the rest of this program will commit into his hand, and we know it shall not only be exciting, but it shall also give us direction going forward. We have done that, and so I have the honor this morning to invite for an opening remark the former chairman of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group in the person of Buka Keari. Sir, you have the platform.
Thank you. Good morning, heads of ministries, departments, and agencies, captains of industries, heads of associations, donor communities, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the board and management of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, I am delighted to welcome our distinguished and erudite panelists and our highly esteemed participants to this august event titled Repositioning Public Governance in Nigeria for Global Competitiveness, Investment Attraction, and Sustainable Development, hosted by the Investment and Competitiveness Thematic Group of the Trade, Investment and Competitiveness Policy Commission. This is one of the pre-summit events of the 28th Nigerian Economic Summit, NESG 28, jointly organized by the Nigerian Economic Summit Group and the Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget, and National Planning. This event is geared towards engaging stakeholders in a series of virtual conversations and sessions in the weeks leading to the 28th Nigerian Economic Summit, scheduled to hold from October 24th to 25th, 2022. If you have not registered, kindly do so by going to nestgroup.org/28 to pre-register now. Public governance is the exercise of government's authority through formal institutions, policies, and regulations to promote and distribute public goods and services fairly and equitably. Effective public governance, investment promotion, and sustainable and inclusive growth are mutually dependent. The level and quality of investment that a nation attracts depends on its security of capital, investment assets, and the return on investment it offers. However, Nigeria is underperforming in foreign direct investment compared to other countries of similar size. The National Development Plan of Nigeria, NDP 2021 to 2025, aims to unlock the country's potential in all sectors of the economy for sustainable, holistic, and inclusive national development. Nevertheless, Despite these ambitious investment targets, Nigeria's inward investment flow data in successive UNCTAD's World Investment Report were very low. Thus, concrete evidence needs to be advanced to potential investors, showing that Nigeria is addressing these issues and ultimately creating reforms that will have a positive impact. This pre-summit event will engage relevant stakeholders to evaluate the impact of public governance on Nigeria's investment climate, diagnose Nigeria's public governance challenges, suggest policy measures for institutionalizing the rule of law, which will help improve Nigeria's business climate and attract quality FDI. Once again, I extend our profound appreciation to every participant here for accepting our invitation to share your knowledge, experience, and insights on promoting public governance that will lead to global competitiveness in the national interest. Finally, I urge you once again to register for the 28th Nigerian Economic Summit through the NESG website to join other experts and stakeholders in articulating an agenda for Nigeria with clear priorities for shared prosperity in 2023 and beyond. May God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for that very succinct, impactful opening remarks. The former chairman looked at the interdependence of public governance and investment attraction and told us that they are mutually dependent. He also looked at Nigeria's performance in investment attraction, which we know is not optimal. They looked at Nigeria's expectation in the National Development Plan 2021 and 2025, and emphasized that there's need for us to work harder to showcase a better investment climate. And for this, we are holding this to dialogue on how to go about it. Thank you very much once more, my former chairman. Having done that, we want to set a stage. What has worked elsewhere, or what is working right now elsewhere? What model of investment promotion is Nigeria running? Are there opportunities for us to actually take a look at our own model? To look at our model and then rejig for improved performance. I have the honor to invite Mr. Roland Oro, the Chief Executive Officer of Commodities Development Initiative, an agri investment promotion and firm in Abuja, who also has taken an international approach to investment promotion, to give us his presentation on performance-based investment promotion model. Roland, you have the floor.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Peter. Thank you, former chairman of NESG, and thank you, panelists. Thank you all the participants. Can you hear me? Can I be sure that I'm being heard? Can you hear me?
Yes, Roland.
Yes, we can.
Hear me, please.
You're very clear.
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you very much. All right, so it's a privilege. I'm so honored to make this presentation. I have about 15 minutes, so I'm going to just quickly go through the slides. So just a little brief of what I do and where I'm coming from and where I'm going to, so that we'll be on the same page and we can learn from this session. I run a company called Commodities Development Initiative. This company came as a result of over 28 years of working in the investment, promotion, business development activities that I've been involved in, private sector development, bilateral donor development. I work with one of the world's largest development agency, and we're involved in private sector development, investment facilitation, policy development, and stuff like that. So after all of this time, I now doing business. In the development business. So CDI basically connects SMEs and smallholder farmers to the global value chain, global market through 4 service streams. One is investment facilitation. We do investment promotion, investment facilitation with a focus on agribusiness and light manufacturing. We do extension delivery. So we work in value chains, export-oriented value chains to sort of, create linkages within the value chains for smallholder farmers and SMEs, to connect with processors and off-takers, within value chains and try to fix the value chains and make them competitive. We also do market development with a focus on export market development. And lastly, we do private sector development. We work with associations, chambers of commerce, sort of, build their capacity so that they can drive the value chains. So on the screen, sorry, this is a very busy screen, but a busy slide. But let me just quickly explain what we have here. So we have 2 products. Invest in Nigeria Roundtable. This is one of our investment facilitation products. The other one is agribusiness networking. It's a domestic investment, promotion, platform with a focus on agribusiness. This is under the platform of the Nigerian Agribusiness Register, which I co-founded, and I'm a director of that platform. We track 15 value chains, 15 agricultural value chains, profiling, profile the actors, and provide networking opportunities, for project promoters and fund providers to sort of meet and do deals. We run deal rooms in some of these networking events. The Invest in Nigeria Roundtable is our international roadshow platform. If you can see on the left-hand side, in 2009, I did my first roadshow in Thailand. It's Invest in Nigeria Roundtable in Thailand, in Bangkok. We brought rice, importers together with Nigerian rice stakeholder actors in Bangkok. And you can see the gap, 2009 to 2019. I went into paid employment and then step out in 2018. And since then, we've been running roadshows. We did one in Abu Dhabi in 2019, in Dubai 2019. And just recently, we did one in Dubai again on the sideline of the Annual Investment Forum. And we're planning something for Saudi in 2022. Down the slide, you see the partnership that we have. I will explain later on why you've seen those partnerships, because we found out that it's very important to do it on a public-private partnership basis. So I will explain more later on as we go on. Can we move to the next slide? So the target, we're targeting 5 billion over the next 8 years in terms of investment facilitation. So we do it as a business. We bring in investors and then help them with their raw materials. So we connect them to clusters of smallholder farmers and SMEs within to these big companies when they come in. All right, so today we're looking at the United Arab Emirates as our model. I know it's not a perfect fit. They are not a democracy, we're a democracy. And sometimes it's easy in a monarchical system like that they have. But nevertheless, they have come up to be number one in several areas. And I think that we have a lot to learn. I reside in the UAE. I have a virtual work visa. I work in Nigeria, but I reside in the UAE. So I sort of try to observe what they're doing. and try to copy and paste so that it can enhance my work in country. So I'm happy to present some of the developments in the investment promotion segment in the UAE. I'm always excited when I read the newspapers. I see what these guys are doing. They're always, on the move, always working, always trying to be number one in several things. And I think that we as a nation, we have a lot to learn. So please, I'm going to use this model today. People said, well, why don't we have other African models? Yes, time did not permit. Maybe next time we can look at other African good performers like Rwanda, Mauritius, Ghana, and other countries. But I think if Nigeria sits up, we can overtake those countries. But let's look at UAE. Abu Dhabi, UAE in 2021, they came top, number one in FDI traction globally. And we can see the figures on the slide. 418 greenfield projects, attracted into the country. And let's see the next slide. Let's go to the next slide, please. And these are other first in the Arab world in FDI attraction. 17th globally for FDI outflows. So two sides of the same coin, inflows and outflows. They are doing pretty well. So it's important to see how, what's the sectoral breakdown. Oil and gas, energy accounting for 59%, of course, followed by information technology and communication sector at 10% of total inward FDI. We have banking, finance, and insurance at 7%. Real estate management and development activities 7%. Healthcare and then manufacturing 5%. So this is the sectoral breakdown of the composition of the inflows. It's important to be mindful of that. Next slide, please. So what are the lessons from the UAE? I've seen that it's a partnership, and that's why you see in the beginning of my presentation, I put up the partnership that we are having. When we did the road shows in 2019, we partnered with the Federal Ministry of Industry and Investment, the Investment Promotion Department. And then recently we partnered with the NIPC because it's important that when you go on those road shows and you come in partnership, it's always stronger. The message is stronger. They take us more seriously when we go in partnership. So I see this a lot in Dubai, especially. The Dubai government, departments, the free trade zones, the Dubai Chamber of Commerce. It's a very coordinated partnership to achieve the numbers that we are seeing today in the UAE. For instance, the Dubai Chamber has about 300,000 members globally. They have representative offices across the world, over 200 offices. In fact, an office is planned now for Nigeria. In the last 4 or 5 years, Nigeria is served by the regional office in Accra, Ghana. So now they're having an office you're going to have an office in Nigeria, I think by the end of this year or maybe early part of next year. And the Dubai Chamber and the Dubai FDI works hand in hand. I think the Dubai government, funds the Dubai Chamber in most of their activities. And the partnership is also with service providers and consultants and experts. They know their strengths, so they complement their strengths, by working with those who can provide value in their operations. For instance, the global business forums that we're all familiar with, it's done in partnership with Economics International Magazine, Economics Intelligence Magazine, and then other service providers, provide services here and there, to make it a very well delivered product, So I think one lesson to learn here is that, look, if we are going to achieve our targets as a nation, we need to look at partnership beyond lip service. We need to have a very good framework, for working with partners within government, within the private sector, the Chamber of Commerce, and within and with the free trade zones. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Also, there's a very healthy competition within the 7 Emirates of the UAE. The chambers of commerce of these Emirates are all involved in a very collaborative competition. Dubai Chamber operates as an almost like an autonomous government. The UAE, the Abu Dhabi is the federal government, but the Emirates, they have their own target, their own strategy. They have their own programs, they have their own funding. They go all out, to sort of engage with foreign investors, and they are all, sort of, competing for attention, for attraction. So I think it's something that we need to be mindful of. As a country, with 36 states and the FCT, I think we can have similar approach, of competing, for foreign direct investment attention. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so no, sorry, go back to the third lesson. Third lesson, yeah. So this is something that is very unique, and I thought it's important to highlight it here. It's all about innovation. Okay, it's all about innovation. The Dubai Chamber has metamorphosed over the last 10 years to be what it is today. The Dubai Chamber operates a 3-in-1 model. So the chamber, I think last year was broken into 3 different entities within one chamber organization. So you have the Dubai Chamber, which looks at the domestic operations, and then you have the Dubai International, okay, which looks at Dubai International Chamber, which looks at international engagements, all the representative offices across the world is coordinated by the Dubai International Chamber. And here you see they have representations in over 200 countries now, with more countries being earmarked, for either offices or representation activities. So it's a very deliberate attempt, to really get into investors to get investors' attention. Okay, so I think there's a lot we can learn here. It's all about innovation. They are always on the move. They go to the Western countries, the advanced countries. They look at what works, and they come back and apply these things. So I think it's the same thing that we can do, looking at what works and then trying to apply, some of these ideas. All right, next slide. Also, I see very clearly that it's a performance and data-driven system. The Dubai FDI Monitor provides all kinds of analysis on the types of FDI projects into Dubai, from greenfield FDI projects to reinvestment projects to mergers and acquisitions, joint ventures, venture capital-backed FDIs. I mean, they track all of these. They also track the source countries. So it's a lot of data, a lot of performance, tracking, monitoring, evaluation, trying to look at what works, what does not work, or what works in other countries. How can they, apply it domestically? So it's all about, intelligence, engagement with experts, to ensure that the targets are met. Like I said earlier on, in 2021, 418 projects, attracted, into the Emirate, and it goes on and on. So it's something that we need to look at. I know that our investment institutions, do a lot of, data analysis, but I think there's a lot that can be done so that we can manage based on evidence. Next slide. So there's also the focus on sectoral FDI attraction, which I don't think we're doing much of right now. Aside the key sectors like telecommunications, but broadly speaking, I think we can have sectoral focus to deepen our FDI attraction. For instance, Abu Dhabi has positioned itself as a global and regional destination for healthcare and life services, incubator for healthcare innovation. and they've been successful in attracting a lot of high class healthcare service providers from around the world into Abu Dhabi. Also for Dubai, they've worked on ICT. They've attracted very high standing ICT companies from around the world. So we need to look at sectoral specialization. Where are the areas where Nigeria, for instance, has sectoral competitive advantage? How can we go out to the world and attract investors in those sectors? So sectoral focus is key, and it's something that has worked very well for the UAE, and I think it's something that we can learn from. Next slide. So as I begin to move towards the end of the presentation, let's look at why do we need a performance-based FDI attraction model for Nigeria. I mean, it's very clear to us that our growth in the last few years has been driven by sovereign debt-induced growth, leading to very high debt servicing situation, and therefore it's very imperative now that Nigeria will have to reset its investment scenario, because we see that the federal government is spending so much on debt servicing, and we cannot fund the growth from budgetary allocations. So we need to look at other models, other alternatives, and basically it behoves on us to look at an investment-driven and markets model. So I think that the time is set now to look at a different model, and I think this discussion is very timely, and will definitely help to sort of put the country in a situation where we can take a different approach to investment attraction, so that we can begin to achieve the numbers. Next slide. So there are a lot of thoughts, conversations to what we can do. One of the question is, do we have the institutions and enabling policies for a performance-based regime? So these are questions that I think the panelists can take a shot at. The panelists are, I think, very competent people who have experience in FDI attraction and FDI promotion. But one of my thoughts here is that, look, why can't we reform the FDI attraction and promotion sector and commercialize it such that government can play the role of policy development and regulation, and allow non-state actors to provide services? We've seen how in the past, where government was providing telecom services, we know what we suffered as a nation. And when that sector was liberalized, privatized, commercialized, and we saw, you can look at the figures in terms of the telecoms investment into the country as of 2021, standing at 417 billion. Can the act setting of the NIPC, for instance, can it be revisited so that NIPC take up the role of regulating service providers, non-state actors, private sector institutions like the chambers of commerce, the bilateral chambers of commerce? All of these institutions, they can support, they can complement and support in investment promotion, investment attraction, investment facilitation. And so I think it's something to look at. We may not have all the solutions right now, but I think the time where we are right now, we have to look at all the options, check under check under the rock, under the stones, to see what is possible within the limits. Like I said earlier on, CDI, we're doing investment promotion as a business. We're working with some of the special economic zone operators to sort of market the zones and attract investment into the zones. And I think the opportunities for this to be done in a more commercial way. So it may be important for government to look at that opportunity to sort of commercialize or incentivize service providers to play that role. Next slide. So the truth is that we have a demand for the investment driven model with the National Development Plan in our hands right now. That plan requires 348 trillion naira, which is about $673 billion in investment commitment. And the federal government is seeking or hoping to provide less than 20% of that. Okay, so the bulk of that will have to come from the private sector. The question is, do we have the infrastructure, the investment promotion infrastructure to make this happen? Do we have the enabling policies to bring this level of investment? The truth is that there's funding around the world. In the Middle East, where I operate from, there is a lot of fund right now. If you are conversant with the development in the Middle East, Dubai, Saudi, they are moving towards a more private sector driven economic development. A lot of the government-owned enterprises in the UAE are going to the capital market to raise funds. The family-owned businesses, they are the family-owned market to raise funds. So there's a lot of funds in these countries. That's the truth. And with the COVID, a lot of the sectors that they have banked on, like tourism, travels, real estate, they've been highly affected by COVID. And so they are looking for alternative destinations. They're looking for alternatives. I had a meeting with the international director of the Dubai Chamber 2 years ago. He told me that some years ago, if you mention Africa, if you mention Nigeria to an average Emirati investor, he may not be interested. But now, because of the dip in returns in their traditional investment opportunities, they are very, very open to investment opportunities in Africa and in countries like Nigeria. But there are a lot of perceptions, negative perceptions that we need to work on. And he said something that we have to kill those perceptions by ourselves. Nobody's going to do it for us. We have to work on it. We have to get the confidence of investors, and we have to, bring up our best teams and engage. So there's funding. There's funding. Saudi Arabia as well is competing with UAE to be the regional hub for the
Roland, wrap up. Just start wrapping up. Huh?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So the point I'm making is that there's funds, and we need to just put our house in order to attract those funds. Next slide. I think I have like two slides more. So these are some questions that I think that may help us moving forward. How do we kickstart a performance-based model? Do we have the institutional and enabling policies for a performance-based model? How do we monitor and measure performance? How do we change mindset in the public sector towards a performance-based model? How do we reward and incentivize good performance? At the national level, how do we stop slow performance? What capacities are needed in the IPAs at national and sub-national model? And how can the NESG, and lastly, who else can support the NESG on this task of advocating for a performance-based FDI attraction and promotion model? Next slide. Next slide. So so I mean, this is the end of this presentation. I just wanted to say that, look, partnership is important. I've worked with the NIPC, and they have a lot of capacities there, and a lot can be achieved. So this is the event we did in March this year, NIPC and CDI. We took to the market $145 billion worth of deals from across the country in the deal book that we're holding there. That's the acting ES of NIPC. And we got we had a deal room session, and we got investors' interest for 1.5 billion, and that is being followed up right now. So the capacity is there. We just need to provide some kind of leadership, so that we can begin to move towards achieving our targets. Thank you very much. I'm sure the panelists will have some points to. I mean, they have a lot of discussions to, on these points. Thank you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Roland, for that very exciting presentation, full of evidence. All right, and I hope that with this we are gleaning some of the approaches that we can actually take away from this webinar. All right, in recommending policy options for our government. Roland told us that what his company CDI does, he looked at the UAE as a top performer in investment attraction in the Middle East, and a ranking 17th position investment location globally. He also looked at sectoral breakdowns of investment flows, showing us that investment attraction is not concentrated in just one or two sectors. He showed us that investment promotion is partnership between the private sector and the public sector. He also showed us that in a country, it's possible for regions and states to compete among themselves favorably and competitively. He also told us that innovation is the order of the day. Thank you very much, Roland, for that. With that, we have set our minds thinking, all right, in the direction to go. Can we ever come close to the capabilities of the UAE in terms of presenting an investment environment that is able to upgrade us in global investment competitiveness? All right, that leads us to the panelist session. As I did announce before, we have Mr. Muda Yusuf, the Chief Executive Officer of the Center for Investment Promotion. We have Dr. Joe Abba. We have Dr. Adeyemi Dipulu, represented by Lisa. And we have Ms. Yewande Sidiku, an investment professional. Now, as a way of laying the background to this debate, I want to say that good public governance is a fundamental driver of competitiveness and economic growth. Public governance and economic growth are some of the factors that investors look out for in arriving at their investment location decisions. Both factors will shape investors' perception of a country. A growing economy would ordinarily support investment promotion, and the corollary is also true. Good public governance is indicated in effective regulation, rule of law, administrative transparency, prudent fiscal management, public integrity, effective law enforcement, stable policy, efficient judicial system, effective investment dispute resolution mechanism, and many other factors. These factors endear a location to investors and make such location competitive when complemented with quality social and economic infrastructure. Nigeria presents a large market size of over 200 million people with a vibrant and youthful workforce and demonstrable creativity and innovation capabilities. Nigeria is rich in natural endowments, very vast in agricultural resources and cultivable landmass, solid minerals, petroleum, a very large body of water mass. If it is about endowments and demography, really, Nigeria could pass for the most attractive investment destination in Africa. The perception of the country, however, needs to be rejigged and propped up. For example, the World Economic Forum, in its global competitiveness ranking, placed Nigeria at 116 of 140 countries in 2019. The report noted that its macroeconomic conditions are worsening, inflation is getting higher and higher, its budget deficit has reached 4.4% as at that time. Institutions appear even more fragile, and the uncertainty to the business environment was increasing. The report proceeded to note that Nigeria is struggling to adapt to volatile commodities market prices, with potential for structural change impeded by low scores of infrastructure, technological readiness, higher education, and innovation capacity. The report listed the most problematic factors of doing business to include inadequate supply of infrastructure, foreign currency regulations, corruption, inefficient government bureaucracy, and political instability, among others. In 2021, the country was placed at the 154th position of 200 countries in the Transparency International Perception Index, and perceived as the second most corrupt country in West Africa. We may not agree with all this, but these are perceptions that shape our image as an investment destination globally. Fiscal and financial incentives will not do away with this gleam image of the investment climate in Nigeria. The National Development Plan targets annual FDI flow of 146 billion for its objectives to be met. However, Nigeria's average foreign direct investment flow between 2015 and 2021 is put only at 2.7 billion per annum, a far cry from the target. Apart from favorable natural endowments, demographic factors, and large market size, several policies and incentives have been put in place by successive governments to woo investors and encourage more investment flow. These include tax incentives, export incentives, sectoral incentives, competitive investment protection measures, and freedom to repatriate proceeds of investment, including profit and capital. It, however, remains that the gap has not been covered by these incentives, that more needs to be done. And what is this more in our economy? Nigerians are expecting democratic dividends, including the dividends of sustainable investment to citizens, such as support for economic growth, employment and job creation, knowledge, skills, managerial and technology transfers, process and product quality standardization, support for infrastructure development, revenue drive through taxation and export trade. What are these policies that will help us bridge this gap? The objective of this roundtable is to shape and outline policy measures to inform reform action and help reposition public governance to improve Nigeria's investment climate and competitiveness, and position us as a preferred investment destination. Our distinguished panelists will be looking at policy options and actions that could position public governance in Nigeria and provide guidelines to improving Nigeria's investment climate and outlook to achieve the desired competitiveness in the global investment market. Once again, we have Mr. Muda Yusuf, the Chief Executive Officer of Center for Investment Promotion, who will be looking at brand image of Nigeria and positioning public institutions in the investment process to boost investment confidence in Nigeria. We have Dr. Joe Abba, who will be looking at trends and investment governance. We have Dr. Dikbolu, the special advisor, now represented by Louisa, who will be looking at public governance challenges and institutional reforms for improved investment climate. And we have Ms. Yewande Sadiko, an investment professional, who from her experience in both the private and public sector will be looking at repositioning Nigeria's investment climate and also how to boost investors' confidence in Nigeria. Our distinguished panels, I have the honor to welcome you to this roundtable. Our panelist session will be structured in this manner. We will open up the floor by giving each, we have set the context. We'll give each panelist 5 minutes to give an opening remark, with particular focus in your area of interest. And then we will pose some questions relating to the areas we believe you are specialized in. And thereafter, we will do a wrap-up of the panelist session and throw the session open to participants who are on the platform to also answer questions. That will be done within 20 minutes. Thereafter, we will do a wrap-up by Professor Aremu. So once again, I want to say a very hearty welcome to our panelists. My internet is a little stable on both the computer and my handset. So I've somehow put up my video in order to be able to stay sustained on this platform. I hope you pardon me for that. I'll try to come back as soon as possible. But I'll starting with Mr. Muda Yusuf. We have looked at what works in another clime. We have also set a context of our investment climate and its perception. Some of these things may not really be as they are, but we know that this is how we are reported. And speaking to those perceptions, they shape how investors see us and how we attract investment. Would you please give us just a 5 minutes opening remark on boosting investor confidence in Nigeria with this context, background context in mind? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, the moderator and the panelists and our participants. First, let me emphasize that when we talk about investors, we should bear in mind that we should be talking about both domestic and foreign investors. Because most times in conversations like this, we tend to focus a lot more on foreign investors. The domestic investors are as crucial to this economy as the foreign investors. So having said that, I think the fundamental issues to discuss actually has to do with how we build investors' confidence. This is fundamental. This is the foundation. And we need to look at the variables from a public governance point of view that drive this confidence. It is when you have this confidence, that is when you can now have the superstructure that relates to investment promotion and things like that. But the fundamentals have to be right. And talking about the fundamentals that drive this confidence, first is the macroeconomic governance. The macroeconomic environment, I mean, Roland talked about Dubai and all of that. In many of these climes, they have very stable macroeconomic environment. So when they are crying that inflation is 40-year high and all of that, they are talking about just about 7%, 6% inflation. Here, we are talking about 19.6% inflation rate. And the reality of the inflation figure in this environment is even much more than that. If you talk to either the citizens or business people, we are talking about inflation of between 50 to 100%. So it's as bad as that. So the macroeconomic governance, we don't have a good handle of it. And this is manifesting first in the galloping inflation that we're experiencing. Secondly, in the volatility in the exchange rates, and most importantly, in the liquidity that we have in the foreign exchange market. How do you talk to any foreign investor in an environment when you don't have a liquid foreign exchange market? There's no point. It's a non-starter. I mean, we saw the kind of embarrassment that we have suffered from the decision of some airlines, you know, the challenges that foreign portfolio investors are facing, FDIs, they can't repatriate funds. The airlines are shutting down. They are getting out of Nigeria. These are very, very embarrassing things. And these things have very huge reputational implications. And these are fallouts of the quality of macroeconomic management. So macroeconomic governance is very key and is central to this conversation. If you don't get it right with our macroeconomic management, then you can as well forget it. Secondly, of course, a key driver is also the regulatory governance. The regulatory space needs to be a lot more important. It needs to be a lot more investment friendly. I mean, we need a regulatory environment that inspires confidence of investors. We're not saying that we should have a lax environment where people just do whatever they like. But again, we need a much better regulatory governance across sectors. And we know what the experience of many investors have been in their relationship with regulators. You know, it has not been very pleasant for many of them. Then the institutional environment is also very key. What is the quality of our institutions? Because it is institutions that determine the kind of policies that you have. It is institution that determines the framework for the implementation of those policies. You know, we talk about the bureaucracy, we talk about the judiciary, we talk about the legislative arm of government. What is the quality of these institutions? If institutions are weak, it is very difficult to build the confidence of investors. That is why you have so much corruption across practically all institutions. You need to talk to investors when they have to interface with the public sector agencies. Most times the stories are not palatable at all. It's not the same thing that you have in the kind of experience that Roland was talking to us about. So the quality of our institutions is very critical. Then the public sector dominance mindset. Most of the policymakers and the political leadership seems to enjoy the dominance of public sector in the economic space, which is also not a good thing. Because in this kind of environment, the smaller the space of the public sector, the better for the investment environment. The more investments you can attract, the more confidence you can build. But when you have a mindset that of public sector dominance in the economy, then it's a major problem. You have critical sectors like oil and gas that the public sector is sitting on. And we all know what the consequences have been for us. We know what other economies are doing with their oil and gas sector. I mean, Roland just gave a statistic of the fact that most of the investment to Dubai and UAE is almost 60% in oil and gas. How much investment have we been able to attract to our oil and gas sector, whether downstream or upstream? If anything, even the little investment that we have, many of them are exiting. They have left the country. What kind of environment are we creating? So the public sector mindset of wanting to dominate the space and not wanting to let go, I think it's another critical issue. Then there is also the issue of fiscal governance. How well are we managing the fiscal space? We have the data on our debt service. We have the data on debt service to revenue. We have the data on the deficit. And more importantly, we have data on how the CBN is financing the deficit. We all know what the serious macroeconomic challenges that has been creating. In terms of the increases in money supply, deficit, inflation, and exchange rate depreciation. Then, of course, we have this ideological disposition of some key government players who believe, they don't quite believe in a market economy. If you don't believe in a private sector-led economy, it is very difficult to get a very good transformation of the economy, because you can see some reluctance about wanting to expand the space for the private sector, by wanting to privatize some key institutions. So the mindset, almost an ideological thing of a state-led economy, I think is something that we need to worry about. Then the commitment to economic integration is also extremely weak. You know, because there's a lot to gain through economic integration. We are part of ECOWAS. Our commitment to it is not so strong. We grudgingly signed on to AFCTA. Up till now, the documents have not been domesticated in the National Assembly, and nothing much is even happening around economic integration, whether at the regional level or at the continental level. The enthusiasm is not there. No? Then, of course, we have structural issues and all of that. So these are some of the things, in my view, that will drive, first, the perception of the country and the reputation of the country as an investment destination, whether for local investors or for domestic investors. I think my 5 minutes is up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. For those very insightful for those very insightful of those factors that investors. I want to also open context of the Nigerian investment climate environment. And from the governance point of view, could you tell us what your take is on how we can improve this climate and position Nigeria more volume and investment? There's something that Dr. Yusuf has told us, and this is very, very important. The emphasis should not just be on attracting foreign direct investment, but also looking at local investment. What do we do? What are those bottlenecks that shape even the operation of local investors who are looked up in foreign investors before operating? Please. The floor is yours, sir.
Okay, is that for me?
No, Dr. Joe Abba.
Okay.
I'm inviting Dr. Joe Abba to make his opening remarks.
Okay, thank you. I think a lot of the issues have been spoken about by the former chairman of NESG. Dr. Muda has also spoken a lot about some of the issues, and the presentation done earlier looking at Dubai. So I really don't think it will be very productive to keep going over issues that we're already aware of. By this year, we've been 23 years as a democracy. By next year, it will be 24 years. That is not to be sniffed at, actually. It's quite an achievement. It's the longest unbroken period of democracy in our history. So that's quite significant. And, you know, it's a fact that virtually, well, let's say most of the developed economies in the world practice democracy in some form or the other. That is incontestable. What is not settled is whether democracy actually leads to economic growth and prosperity. And there have been various examples where that is not the case. And the example of Dubai that was just presented is another case in point. The other countries that were mentioned include Rwanda. The extent to which Rwanda is a journeying democracy is also debatable. So we've been having all these elections since 1999, but elections don't necessarily equal democracy. Proper democracy will include the ability of citizens to participate in their government without fear of intimidation or violence. It will include a vibrant opposition that whoever is in power makes sure they don't crush. It will improve the ability to hold government to account for whatever promises they make, because the business of politicians is making promises before they come into power. So the ability to hold them to account on that is another key element of democracy. Then, you know, you need to look at some of the other issues, you know, leadership. What is the quality of leadership that we've had across the board? Because, you know, in Nigeria, when we talk about leadership, people tend to look at the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Of course, very, very important, and it needs to flow downwards from that. But at each level, the quality of leadership in the country is important. Then how do we recruit into the public service and into the system? I say that we've sacrificed merit on the altar of representation, and it doesn't work. There's nowhere where merit has been sacrificed, where progress has been made. Then you need to look at the quality of governance across the tiers. So do we run a governance system that puts the needs of the whole population first and doesn't do anything except the welfare and security of the people? Is that the kind of governance we run? And I think the answers to those questions are obvious. You know, as we lawyers say, res ipsa loquitur, the thing speaks for itself. It doesn't need me to actually canvass any opinion, because we feel it as Nigerians. So I want to focus instead on some of the things that we can do, some of the things we need to do. Because I realize we only have about 50 minutes left, and a number of other panelists haven't yet spoken, and we haven't taken any questions from the audience yet. So we need to get a handle on our security. Nobody goes into anywhere where you know, insecurity is rife. We need to be able to move our goods and our people freely. So, you know, safe transportation systems. We need to be able to not have foreign airlines pulling out of Nigeria and local airlines threatening to stop operations, just like Dr. Muda said. We need to focus very heavily on the ease of doing business. And we've made some progress in that regard. We need to do a lot more. I'm very pleased that the federal government, in partnership with the World Bank, is putting in place a subnational program called State Action on Business Enabling Environments that provides a $750 million incentive for states to actually improve their business environment. That will have a huge impact. And I can tell you that for a fact, because a similar program called the State's Fiscal Transparency and Accountability System is just coming to an end, having been run for about 3 years now. And I can tell you as a development practitioner that that program has achieved more in 3 years than traditional donor programs has achieved in the last 50 years. And so we need to focus a lot on that and encourage states to improve their ease of doing business. And having this incentive, this cash-based incentive, which, you know, for the fiscal transparency one, it was as simple as if you publish your budget on the website, you get $2 million. If you do electronic procurement, you get $1.5 million. It was as simple as that. And so if we have that in a business regulatory environment, I think we'll see dramatic improvements. So that's very important. It's very important that we reform the investment promotion environment in Nigeria. It's fantastic that we have a one-stop investment center, but we need to go beyond that and reform the members of that investment center. There are about 27 agencies collaborating on the investment center, but it's very uneven, their track record in easing investment. So you have things like immigration, visa on arrival is working reasonably well. It's still quite tortuous to clear goods through the ports. We still have multiple taxation schemes, both formal and informal. And you still have, to my mind, too high a level of discretion. So we've done wonderful things. You can incorporate your company quicker, particularly with the new CAC Act. You can search online to see if a name is available. But then you search online, you see that a name is available, you apply to incorporate that name, you are told no, you can't incorporate that name because it is similar to another name. That is where the discretion comes in, because it is someone's discretion to say, oh, yes, you can go ahead, or no, you cannot. And all of these things cause interminable delays. And it erodes all the gains we've got from the new CAMA, and even the rule that the Attorney General, for instance, for companies limited by guarantee, must give his approval within 30 days. You can spend 3 months just getting a name approved, which unfortunately is not counted. We need to improve the way we harness the quality of our people, the quality of labor. So I lead an organization in Nigeria that has currently about 4 people working for our US office out of Nigeria. And that's because of the quality of IT that Nigeria has been able to produce. And you can see that in our financial technology sectors and all of that. And we need to do what India has done, focus on its areas of strength. I think it was Roland that also talked about focusing on particular sectors. We need to focus on sectors on which we have a competitive advantage, and the quality of our IT skills, particularly among young people, is an area that we should fervently support. When I was DG in charge of public service reforms at the federal level, I know the number of calls I got from investors who simply could not reach the website of our ministries and agencies. The numbers on there didn't work. Sometimes the website didn't work at all. And because I made myself visible, I cannot tell you the number of investors that had to come through me, and then I contacted the respective minister and say, look, this investor from Canada or from the US is trying to reach you because they want to invest in mines or they want to invest in agriculture. That shouldn't be the case. We shouldn't be in that situation. And so while we talk about, the public sector not wanting to be controlling, the public sector actually has a very, very important role to play in facilitating and coordinating investment promotion. And I think there's a lot more that we can do than we're currently doing. And so all of this, all of what has been discussed is very important. I just want to say that lastly, you also want to reform the investment promoter themselves and invest in the investment promoter themselves. These things don't happen by accident. If you look at OECD countries, most OECD countries spend $7 million on their investment promotion agencies on average, $7 million. In Nigeria, I looked at the NIPC budget for last year. I think it was about 2.2 billion, which comes to about $5.2 million. That's not bad. But then most OECD countries, their investment promotion agencies spend something like $2 million annually on investment promotion activities. How much do we spend in NIPC on investment promotion activities? I looked at their budget and it showed an operating surplus of 900 million naira. That's by the time you've taken off capital and overheads. But then he said, oh, out of this 900 million naira, we need to transfer 400 million or so to help fund the 2022 budget. So how much are we actually spending on investment promotion? Wasn't terribly clear to me. So the public sector has a very, very important role to play. That role should be an enabling one and a facilitating one rather than an obstructive one. Thank you. Over.
Thank you, Dr. Sorry, I think. Hello? Can you hear me? I think it's better.
Yes.
Thank you. Wow.
I think you need to mute one of your...
Thank you, Dr. Joe Abba.
You need to mute one of your devices. That's why it's echoing, because you've got two devices with the microphones on.
Thank you very much, sir, for those insightful recommendations. What I've done, discretionarily so, is to allow thoughts to flow freely, all right? So that even if we have to adjust our structured discussion, all right, the important thing is getting out the policy options that are available to us. And so much has been given by the last two speakers. So it's very interesting that from the private sector perspective, from the development practitioners' perspective, we have got options. But what with the government? What are the challenges that, yes, because from the other side, it's easy to see the reasons why the investment climate is not improving. All right, I want to turn to Louisa Chiedo, who represents Dr. Ademi Delelu, the special advisor, Dipolu, the special advisor to the President on Economic Affairs. And I want to ask, in public governance, what are the key challenges that would ordinarily put a spanner on government's good intention? What, in your perspective, should government do, given what it knows, to ensure that we recourse to that part where investors toast us as an investment destination? So you are, Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peter, and thank you for having me here. I think much has been said on public governance and how it affects Hello? Public governance.
Yes, I
and
think
how
we
it-
can hear you.
Okay. Okay then, and how it affects the investment climate. Specifically, I'll be looking at the bureaucracy. Like we all know, the public service or public servants are most likely the first level contacts that investors would have in the country. So this, we cannot ignore the influence of our public service on investors' decisions and on their confidence. So a lot has been said while investors are looking at enforceability of contracts, stability of policies. Also, they do look at administrative efficiency and responsiveness of government institutions. And there was a study that was done by World Bank on what investors look for when they're investing in developing countries. And they were able to identify that government responsiveness is the most important factor for failure of investments. So looking at what the public service does, what the bureaucracy does, we can see that it's the key instrument for governance and is a sine qua non for a properly functioning government. We need to actually invest in our public service. When you look at the role that it will play in terms of investment in the investment climate and directing investment flows, you look at policy formulation, policy implementation, regulation, which is very important, and then service delivery. So in order to transform the country, we need to look at some key pillars. And I think Dr. Joe did talk about one of them. We're talking about recruiting on merit, training, and then we're looking at fostering coordination across all agencies of government. And I think most important of all, which maybe we haven't really spoken to, is entrenching public sector integrity. I think these are key ones for investors. And while I think Dr. Jill said there isn't really a correlation on democracy and economy, studies have established a correlation between attracting FDI and bureaucratic performance. And so I think most of the poor governance we see in Africa has been traced to weak bureaucracy on the continent. Now, when you look at countries that have done relatively well in terms of investment climate, you look at Brazil in 2021, Brazil was the 7th largest destination for global FDI flows. And this wasn't really happenstance. If you follow through, you see that the government had embedded several reforms in terms of public governance reforms. They had done a lot of work in terms of ease of doing business reforms, in digitizing government. And this, to a large extent, had simplified lots of processes, authorization processes for investors and the likes of them. Countries that have been known to have good public, efficient public service, you have countries like Singapore have consistently invested in training and in development and the welfare of their public service. So it's no wonder that Singapore continues to retain its position as Asia's largest recipient of US FDI flows. And also, Singapore continues to be the regional hub for multinational companies, within Asia. And even when you come closer home to South Africa here, continues to be the most advanced country on the continent in terms of a comparatively low risk, investment risk grade. And this is also, mostly due to the fact that they have focused on stability of government institutions. I think all this just goes to say that we need to look closer at our public service. So while a lot of other things are going on, Dr. Muda talked a lot about the macroeconomy and all of that. While that is going on, the engine and instrument for governance needs to be improved in terms of quality so that we're able to deliver on this. When we bring it home, looking at what we are doing as a country, we can see the head of civil service championing reforms within the civil service. So there's the current civil service strategy plan for 2021 to 2025. And it's the pillars for that plan, or the key thrusts for those for the plan, seems to be one, or it seems like they can set us on the path that we're looking for. When you talk about performance management, innovation, digitizing government, capacity building. And in terms of capacity building, They already have launched the Lead P program, which is one of the 3 training programs identified or itemized by the plan. They have graduated the first cohort, 118 top civil service talent who have undergone 7 months internship training. And I think strikingly, upon graduation, they were given some welfare benefits via housing loans. I think that this is important to note because when you talk about entrenching public sector integrity, which is very important for the investment climate, to entrench public sector integrity, we cannot ignore the need for public service welfare to be taken care of. Then you look at the fact that they're about starting the second cohort of that program. Also, interestingly, they did get private sector support for launching out with the Lead P program. They had the Africa Initiative for Governance support with program design, with sourcing internship placements and technical assistance. So I believe that if we do implement the plan as itemized, coupled with some added things, we should be able to move closer towards a meritocratic civil service. And this on its own should be able to catalyze investment. I think also that private sector can play a role in supporting some of the initiatives on this plan. I mean, either via peer learning or talent embedding programs. Also, when you look at what government is doing in terms of ease of doing business, I think Dr. Joab spoke a bit to this. So a lot has been done in terms of ease of doing business. We still have some ground to cover. I think that the SABA program is a good opportunity to actually deepen these reforms at subnational level, because most times, reforms are concentrated at the center. But at times, things do happen, a lot at the state level, especially when you talk about investments. Investors are approaching states directly, and then they would come in contact with bureaucrats at state level. So, and institutions too at state level. So the SABA program, taking the ease of doing business reforms to the subnationals is a commendable one. I think that an opportunity that we have with regards to ease of doing business is we have focused and probably gained traction in the area of actually starting a business or getting access to having a business. So we've improved like the registrations and all the bottlenecks that surround those kinds of things and licensing. We do need to take it further and deepen it in terms of running the business. So you have started the business easily. You were able to get through all the different agencies and the bottlenecks and the registrations. The things that plague businesses while they are operating, we now need to focus on all those things and say, how can we make it easy for the businesses to continue to operate and not to go extinct? Coming down to the National Development Plan, I think it's been discussed. It does have objectives that are aligned to improving the quality of overall governance in the country. And I think one of the things they are looking at beyond service delivery by public sector institutions is actually improving coordination across the tiers of government and also across MDAs. I think that this whole of government approach should actually result in improved regulatory quality and also administrative simplification, which I think these are some of the challenges we have when you talk about like things at the ports, like Dr. Joe Abba had mentioned. In certain services being provided by public sector institutions, strengthening coordination will be key to actually simplifying processes and will be instrumental for strengthening investors' confidence. So I think all in all, to also keep it short because of the time spent and other panelists to also share their perspectives, I think when you look at it holistically, the challenges we do have are challenges of accountability, challenges of transparency, challenges of trust, and challenges of coordination. And these are things that we need to address, looking inwards to the bureaucracy and addressing the current challenges that we have. We have lots of policies and plans in place. So implementation is really key to getting us to where we should be. Implementation of our digitization initiatives such that we improve transparency, consequence management. So that's captured in a way in terms of performance management in the plan. So if we're able to work on these things and implement them, so there should be consequences, there should be performance management, there should be accountability within the civil service system. And I believe that once we strengthen the bureaucracy, that will be the engine that would ensure that we deliver across board on the things that will ensure that we move from just being an investment prospect to becoming a country that attracts and retains investment interests across board. So thank you. This is what I'd say for now. Hello, Mr. Peter, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Luisa. Thank you for your very thoughtful presentation. Accountability, transparency, institutional stability. All right, these are issues that go to the heart of governance. And that takes me to Ms. Yewande Sadiku. It does appear like the political risk issues facing investors in Nigeria are getting higher and higher every day. From your perspective as an investment professional, how has the private sector, all right, perceived our political risk issues? What policy options from the other side do you think that the government has to address and improve our political risk environment and bring in some level of confidence, investor confidence in Nigeria? Thank you. Sorry if I am veering off the trend. I'm just allowing thoughts to run freely. Thank you very much.
No problems. Good morning, all. I think the challenges that foreign investors have participating in Nigeria from an investor perspective are well known and have been referred to. Even when you were speaking, you referred to a number of the issues that prevent investor participation. We underestimate the importance of, first of all, there's an assumption that investment promotion or investor attractiveness is binary, that the investment promotion agency has the capacity to deliver a country's investment objects. And there is an assumption that once there are incentives on the table, financial incentives usually that investors will come. We underestimate the importance of the efficiency of the judicial system. We underestimate the importance of corruption. We underestimate the importance of the bureaucracy that investors face, even with simple things like getting visas. The visa process has been improved, but getting goods in and out of Nigeria has been a problem. There is a challenge with getting foreign exchange. For those who have invested already, there isn't a single company that operates in Nigeria. Actually, maybe that's a bit general. Most companies, let me say, most companies that operate in Nigeria require some level of importation to be able to produce in Nigeria. There are very few companies, if any, that can produce 100% of what they require in Nigeria without importing anything at all. So difficulty accessing foreign exchange is a problem for all. First, for production. Then when production happens, sales happen, there are profits and the like, and the dividend to be remitted to investors. There's a problem with getting out their dividend. And none of us will join a club that you cannot leave. A club where you're told you can only come in, but you cannot leave. Investors need the capacity to import and export foreign currency to give them confidence. You talked about improving the political risk environment. I think investor confidence is, and investors like stability. They like stability in macro environment. They like stability in foreign exchange policies. They like stability in political environments so that they can draw models that help them predict or give a sense of what will happen over a long term. And there are two types of investors. They're direct investors and they're portfolio investors. Both types of investors like some stability. There's often an assumption in government that portfolio investors are not the right kind of investors that we want. But portfolio investors keep our capital markets visible. And on the investment spectrum, most people will come into a country first as portfolio investors and build confidence, one with the kind of returns that they're able to get from that country and the ability to bring in capital to invest, to take out their returns, to bring it again, to take it out again. They just like to know that the money can come in and go out. Then once there's greater comfort at the short end, at the portfolio end of the investment spectrum, they're then more likely to graduate to the direct end, which is more long-term, which is where factories are built, boots are put on the ground, and investors plan 5, 10, 20-year investment horizons. We need to make sure that there's a coordination between the two. What has happened now is at the short end of the investor spectrum, we're not seeing as many investors come. So the quantum of foreign currency that would come into the country based on investments from people who are buying Nigerian securities has largely disappeared. So there isn't enough to fund those who want to take out the returns that they make in Nigeria. So it is more than just the political risk environment that needs improvement. In my view, investment promotion, investor attraction is an all of government approach. It cannot be the work of one agency. And it is important that government thinks about all spectrums of an investor's life, from when they make an investment to when they have a dispute and how that dispute is resolved. So even issues around the judiciary and matters that give concern about their ability to get justice efficiently, to get justice promptly, and to get justice that is fair. Even the ability to do that affects investors' perceptions. Peter?
Just listening, we rapt attention. Thank you. Thank you very much. If you're true, thank you so much.
Yes, I am.
Yes, for keeping it very direct. I think we have barely 15 minutes to round up this webinar. All right, so I am going to rather cut short the other slated activities because we've heard a lot. There's a consensus that the stability of the business environment is important. Stability, transparency, and openness of institutions and regulations is very, very important. Macroeconomic policy and macroeconomic policy environment and fiscal governance is very, very, transparency of fiscal governance is very, very important. And there are a whole lot of policy options that have been recommended. So what I'm going to do now, discretionarily so, and I want to apologize if I'm offending sensibilities, is to use the next, I think we have barely 15 minutes, to throw the platform open to participants on the platform to ask questions. Please do that by using the electronic hand raise and introduce yourself and pose your question, and you're feel free to indicate who among any of our panelists should take the question. Thank you. The floor is open to participants. Thank you very much. Otherwise, I will also go with questions on the question and answer room. All right, and in the room, we have something related to regional integration within and the states. Somebody is writing, can we consider regional competitiveness? Can we look at what each region has and create competitiveness around that? Can we get the NIPC to work with states to set up or create a desk in NIPC? Now, this is from Dr. MKO Balogun. But I want to add, the states can do a lot to also support investment promotion. We know that the body of the Governors Forum is a very strong and influential body in our country. How do we leverage this forum to improve FDI? I guess that this is also talking to this question. And I want to open
Peter,
it back.
can I speak to that?
Hello?
Can I speak to that?
Please,
I spent 5 years at NIPC.
Please feel free.
Yeah, so the Governors Forum is actually a very powerful platform for pulling in state investment promotion, for peer learning amongst governors and the like. And when I was at NIPC, we worked very closely with the Governors Forum. We actually produced with the Governors Forum the Book of States, which identifies the competitive advantages and investment opportunities on a state-by-state basis. But that was only the first step in the process. As it happens at federal level, states also need to make themselves attractive for investors. And we promoted state competitiveness, we promoted regional competitiveness. But competitiveness, selling yourself on the basis of competitiveness is most effective if you have first identified what your specific competitive advantages are. I don't think we can run away from the reality of the fact that there are many of the agencies that we have doing this work at federal level are weak in terms of institutional setup, but they're also weak from a financial perspective. So there's the work of states working together and selling on a state or regional basis has already, the foundation has been laid. Obviously, further work needs to be done. But we underestimate that investment promotion is very expensive. And when Dr. Joe was speaking, he mentioned that the OECD countries spend about $750 million on their IPAs. NIPC's federal budget, what was released to NIPC in 2020 and 2021 was less than $2 million for NIPC's core work. About 70% of that went to funding personnel. So when you think about how much is available for investment promotion, the quality of the resources that we have in Nigeria, they're not comparable to what they have in OECD countries. They're certainly not comparable to the example that Roland Oro gave, when he was making his presentation. But a lot of the foundational thinking and foundational work, has been done. I would encourage that work continues with the Governors Forum. First, to make sure that the governors see what the others are doing, and can compete with each other. And we also advocated when I was at NIPC that instead of looking at global best practice, for many states in Nigeria, global best practice is too aspirational. In the first instance, from an investment promotion perspective, that they should look at the best states in Nigeria for different parameters. And the World Bank already had material done on state level investment promotion or state level business attraction. So for starting a business in Nigeria, FCT is the most competitive. For dealing with construction permits in Nigeria, Niger State is the most competitive. For registering property and for enforcing contracts, Kaduna State is the most competitive. States can first aspire to those levels. Then they can aspire to regional, that's African best practice rather than global, where Burundi, Mauritius, and Rwanda, are fantastic examples for Nigeria to leverage. But I'll stop that there.
Thank you very much, Yoande. For want of time, I just want to throw two questions that have been posted on the platform. All right, so any of the panelists, all right, that can take on it, I will invite Dr. Muda Yusuf to take on this first one, while any other person can. The question is from Nonso Obikili, and the question reads: what kind of actions can development partners take from a practical perspective to improve Nigeria's productivity and competitiveness? Dr. Muda, please, just in 1 minute, can you attempt to talk to this question? And maybe Dr. Joe Abba too can look at it, please, in just one minute. Thank you.
Well, I think development partners can prevail on the government to undertake some urgent reforms, because in all of this, the macro environment, whether we are talking about FX, finance, infrastructure, is very, very critical. So the issue is about accelerating reforms, first in the foreign exchange market, at least to bring some liquidity to that market, because international trade and international flow of capital cannot happen effectively under the current policy regime in the foreign exchange market. So that is very key. Then, of course, reforms around our international trade processes.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. We're just running for time. Can Dr. Abba also just give us his perspective on that question?
Well, two things. Development partners can prioritize trade over aid, and that brings out the competitive spirit in us. The second thing they can do is what the World Bank is doing with other development partners, which is to incentivize these reforms, and that's why we're doing this SEBA initiative. So changing the incentives from trade to aid, and then providing direct incentives to get people to behave differently.
Thank you very much, sir. Our final question on this before I draw the curtain would go to Louisa. Louisa, kindly just throw a light on this. An investor will readily come to a country where the factor costs are attractive and not prohibitive. What is the effort of government in proactively addressing this issue? Costs input, high input cost into production. In Nigeria, we know electricity, we know fuel or energy, all right? We know even security costs today is, sky high. What is government doing to address this? So because you represent the public sector, I address this question to Louisa. Louisa, please. You have 30 seconds so that we can draw the curtain. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think just as you have mentioned, some of these costs are as a result of several other underlying factors, like you said, power, in terms of people who are coming to invest in manufacturing and the likes of that. So there's a lot going on in terms of power. There are several power reform initiatives, and there's actually a plan that is being worked on alongside between government and also with the support of development partners. So hopefully we would see some of those as we implement these initiatives. We should see some of these costs go down. I do know that in terms of first-time investors, there are some incentives to encourage them coming from, the investment promotion commissions and the likes of them. But all in all, when you look at initiatives that government is undertaking in terms of ease of doing business for these investors, the whole idea is that the cost to actually it will be significantly reduced as we address issues surrounding administrative inefficiencies and coordination challenges amongst the different government agencies. So we are on the pathway. We do anticipate that more will be done in a short time, but it's still a work in progress.
All right, thank you, Lisa. Everyone will agree with me that just 1 hour or even 2 hours are not just enough for us to tackle the issues of addressing the bottlenecks in our investment climate. But we have been able to glean a lot of opportunities to improve our policy framework, and not just improving the policy framework. Implementation is an issue in Nigeria. All right, there's a behavioral dimension of policy making and policy implementation that calls for us as well to up our ante in addressing them. I want to thank our distinguished panelists for a very exciting and solution-driven session. We are just beginning. Let me say that the investment thematic group is a very fresh group in the NESG. We have a lot in our kitty that we will roll out please, you have done us this bit. We might likely come back to you soon because we are looking at how at the end of the day, some of these are discussions will not just only go into policy white papers, but also how we can lend technical support to implementation. So I want to thank you for supporting us this morning, particularly that we know that this is a Monday morning. Many of us also are in locations where they have to wake up very early to join us. So we appreciate, we cannot say thank you enough for this. And to all our participants, I also say thank you for listening. At this point, I want to invite Professor Aremu, the facilitator of the Trade, Investment and Competitiveness Policy Commission. So say the closing remarks and give us a vote of thanks. Professor Aremu, please.
Thank you so much, Peter Oluoye of ECOWAS Commission, and thank you everyone for wonderful discussion. I've listened from the beginning to the end. First and foremost, I have to thank our former president at Nigerian Economic Summit Group, Buka Kiari, that take time to be able to open this particular wonderful discussion. Wonderful in the sense that we want to trade in ECOWAS. We want to trade in African Continental Free Trade Area. But if you don't invest, if there is no investment, where will you trade? Are you going to carry only yams to all those places? No. We have substantial potentials, and we think that it will be very, very important that we reposition the public governance so that we can make use of our potential to enter the opening up of market, including the international market at the WTO. So we appreciate the wonderful people that have spoken. First of all, Roland Oro, the speaker that talks so much, is a very wonderful friend for nearly 3 decades now. Thank you so much, Roland. Secondly, the panelists, I will thank each and every one of you. I listened to your wonderful contribution, starting with my wonderful brother, Muda, whom I've known also for nearly 2 decades. We have turbulent discussion when it was time for Nigeria to be part of ECOWAS, to enter economic partnership agreement with European Union. These are people that make intensive contribution to what Nigerian stand is today, so that we don't actually rubbish our productive sector by going into economic integration that will not give us any benefit. A David and Goliath kind of economic integration is not usable. And these are the people that actually discuss so well. So once again, Munda, thank you. Also, our erudite sister, Yewande, who is so wonderful, and particularly in our contributions at NIPC, we are very, very grateful for the imprint you have left behind. You have left your naming some of capital letters in Nigeria Employment Promotion Commission, and you ever be remembered in NIPC as well as what you have done in the past and what you are doing now. But as Peter said, we need people like this to continue to engage with us in TICPC. In addition, a close associate of my senior special assistant advisor to the president, Yemi Dipewolu. I'm Yemi Aremu as well. So we are namesake, who has somebody that I cherish so much, particularly when we are discussing this illicit flow of capital into and out of Nigeria, which is something that is very painful to Nigerian economy on so many instances. We have to dialogue in this particular area. And he is represented by Luciana, who did a very good justice to the assignment. Thank you so much, my sister that has represented my namesake, Yemi Dipewolu. And Dr. Joaba, we have been interacting, but not too closely. Today, I really enjoy your wonderful contribution as well. And then I go along to look at the contribution of, what's the next one? Peter Oluoye, the Central Bank Chief. ECOWAS Chief, who did a very wonderful justice, particularly in making sure that the entire process goes on well. Well, we could not have better experts than all these people who are taking time, Monday morning, to be able to attend to this matter. And we appreciate each and every one of you. Something I saw in the entire discussion centered on 2 things. Number one, issue of our investment climate. And the second one is the issue about our investment image. Both the image and the climate, they are not in good shape. If you have a very good investment climate, but your perception from outside the global economy is faulty, you will go nowhere. And if you have a very good image, but nothing to show in the climate of investment, you can't make impact. So, and this is what these experts have been talking about. I believe that we are going to aggregate all this information and ensure that we come out with a very good policy input into the current governance of the economy. And particularly, I want us to look at what the speakers actually told us about, that is a new model, looking at USE model. And let us see what we can pick from there so that we can enjoy a very good investment patronage that is not only a very nice one, but equally sustainable. The entire African Union is concerned with sustainable investment now. That's an investment that will come and stay, particularly as my sister Yuande said, not portfolio investor that is hot money, they run away, immediately there's a shake in the capital market. But a foreign direct investor that will not unbolt what they brought in case there's any problem. So once again, I appreciate you all. And on behalf of Trade, Investment and Competition Commission Group, we appreciate each and every one of you. And particularly from our CEO, Jayola Laoye, who is very much happy about what we have done today. We thank each and every one of you. And I say that God bless you as we go back to your different vocations. We are very grateful. Thank you.